The principal mechanism has been an 11-person pastor nominating committee of diverse Westminster members that has been meeting at least once a week over the past few months. Tuesday Morning Fellowship invited two of the people serving on this committee, and they graciously consented to come and tell us as much as they can about the process, what they've accomplished to date, and the timeline they are following to meet Pastor Lincoln's midsummer retirement goal. Lene Young is co-chair of the Pastor Nominating Committee, a past deacon, currently an elder, and a member of the session, and she chaired a task force that designed the current search process. Steve Brown has served Westminster as a trustee, head usher, and as a member of the Campus Youth Task Force, recommending how the church responds to the pandemic. He is a retired hospital administrator and president of Rotary Club of Westchester. I might just note that this is the last meeting of our fall Tuesday morning fellowship schedule. But starting January 11th, we have a full slate of 20 programs, including a field trip to a blacksmith shop and a forge in Goshen that will run through May 24. If you want a copy of the list of speakers and topics, you can pick one up on the way out. It's on the back table. And Dan Williams would like to just make a short announcement before we start.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. I just wanted to mention that I looked at the sign-up sheet this morning for ushers on the 24th, and we still need quite a few ushers. There's openings at all of the services, so if any of you, could help with that, drop by and sign up today before you leave. Thank you.
Renee and Steve, it's all yours.
Come on up, Steve.
Oh, all right. It's a lot more comfortable sitting down.
It is a lot more comfortable sitting down. Welcome. Glad to be here today. Just trying to get a little bit. Oh, and hello. Sorry, just wanted to give a. Can we see? People can't see us over here.
Camera's on this one.
There we go. Hello, hello, everyone. Good to see you all online. Sorry that you see our backs. Sure. And the mics. First of all, and again, I'm Lene Young. Thank you for the nice introduction, Craig. And Steve Brown. We are two members of the 11-member Pastor Nominating Committee. I wanted to give a little bit of a background about how we got here. Don obviously announced his retirement in April of 2021. The church had previously, personnel in session had previously decided not to use an interim pastor, but instead will transition directly from our retiring head of staff to our incoming head of staff in summer of 2022. Nominees for the Pastor Nominating Committee were collected from leaders and the congregation, and the 11-member PNC was selected and confirmed by the congregation in May of this year. Sorry, got it. Hold on, he's saying recorded. Excellent, thank you. The PNC had our orientation with Donegal Presbytery, which is our regional governing body, in June of this past summer, and we've been meeting weekly since then. And we actually have been meeting exactly in this room because we have the opportunity to be hybrid. We've been trying to meet in person, but of course we have people that occasionally have been traveling, not feeling well, are busy with kids. So the fact that they can Zoom in has just been a real godsend. Craig already gave an introduction for me, but I'll give you a little bit of a background. My husband and I joined the church in 2002. We have two young children at the time who were baptized at the church. They were since confirmed and are now off in college. Our oldest son, Kemper, is a senior at Penn State, will be graduating in May. And our younger son, Griffin, is a sophomore at American University in DC. I had the opportunity to get very involved in the church. I was part of Mother's Group, served as a deacon for 3 years, helped coordinate the new members classes where I got a chance to meet a lot of people, certainly. As well as now serving as an elder. I've also been on the personnel committee since 2016. Steve, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Sure. We've been coming to, my wife and I have been coming to this church. First of all, forgive me, I've got a bit of a head cold. And it's a head cold. I had 2 COVID tests. Just because COVID's here, the other stuff didn't go away. Still, I feel pretty good, but anyway. We've been coming to this church since about 2006, joined in 2016 when I retired here. We retired because both of our sons are here. Our oldest son teaches high school at Youngtown East. Our youngest works for Aetna. He lives on Chapter. You know I gave it to you guys. I'm a retired hospital administrator, so probably what he does is when you call and say, is insurance covered, he says no. But we've enjoyed it here. One of the first things I did was sat down with Don Lincoln and said, I'm retired, I have a little bit of time. If God calls me, I promise I will serve. So I'm now a trustee, I'm on the PNC, I'm the head usher, I'm on the free school board, I'm on the community. The only thing I don't do is mow the lawn. But I met some wonderful, wonderful people on the PNC and just enjoyed very much what we did.
One of the objectives of session in selecting the PNC members was to have a broad array of members from different walks within the life of the church. As you can see, are pictures of the 11 committee members, all of whom, and I just think this is very important to say, when they received the phone call from Jeff Smith as chair of personnel, all of them said yes. So those 11 were the first 11 that session felt would be provide a good blend in this very important task. And they've all committed pretty much a year of their time in meeting weekly to work through this process with us. If you'd like to learn more about these, if you don't recognize these faces and names, Rob Avery, Steve Brown, obviously right here, Angela Emmerich, Bertie Kimmel, Scott Lockledge, Terry Pennington, Jim Scanlon, Phyllis Simmons, Ruth Simonson, Patrice Stilley, and myself, Lene. You can find our bios and learn more about each of these members on our webpage, which is westminsterpc.org/about/PNC. In case you didn't realize that the PNC has their own webpage on Westminster's site. So if you're looking for any information from the PNC, you can reference our site.
Okay, this is our timeline. I will say right away, we're on schedule with this. It's a rather lengthy timeline. Someone like myself, I learned a lot about this. You know, when you're hiring hospital executives, it takes about a month. This takes a little bit longer. We started as Lene and Craig intimated back in July. The Ministry Information Forum, we started working on that. Lene's going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. We drafted that, had it approved both here at session and with Donegal Presbytery, and then we had that distributed. So we started to review the pastoral information forms, which is like the application. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we get those. Started to review those in September, October. We conducted some first interviews. We spent a lot of time looking at sermons. You know, nowadays you can pull up the church, and because everyone's streaming, you can pull up any sermon you want to watch. You can watch the whole service. You can watch a baptism. So we're actually vetting these candidates pretty well. You're going to talk about how many were vetted later? I can't remember.
Over 50.
Over 50
so far.
Steve, Lene, can you use the mic?
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure.
I got so much outside noise.
Oh, sure. Sorry. So anyway, where we are now is we've got 6 or 8 candidates that we've done some first interviews. We're waiting to get a PIF back from them so that we know that they're as interested in us as we are of them. And so we hope to start. We're going to take a couple of weeks off, but we're going to start second interviews in January. So we're on schedule. We hope to have this all wrapped up in the spring. We're looking at doing a transition with Don for about 2 weeks before he leaves. So, and again, the timeline is on our website. All of this that we're talking with you today about is on the website. Just pull up the PNC and you'll find all of this stuff there. So that's our timeline.
So not surprising, there's a lot of acronyms. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on what this all means. The first task that we had as the Pastor Nominating Committee was to draft our MIF, or Ministry Information Forum. This is a PCUSA document which outlines Westminster's vision, knowing Christ, making Christ known, as well as our mission or where we're going, and what we're going to be looking for in our next leader. The MIF had to be approved by session and then went to Donegal Presbytery where it was approved. And then it is uploaded to the Church Leadership Connection, which is a PCUSA database. Aaron Cox-Holmes, our executive presbyter at Donegal Presbytery, calls it the PCUSA dating app. So it's where we are matched with candidates that are actively looking for calls and fit much of the criteria that we put in our MIF. Just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what the MIF contains. The MIF describes who we are as a church. So we're an over 1,500 member church. We're about 1940, I think, 1,940 members, but the category we fit in is greater than 1,500 member church. We are in the suburbs. We're looking for a head of staff with 2 or more teaching elders, which is other pastors. We actually obviously have 3, as well as other staff. The MIF also includes our demographics, our average worship service, and church school attendance. We're looking for a candidate with 5 to 10 years of experience as a head of staff in a large multi-pastor church. And we're offering a minimum effective salary, which includes the housing allowance of $130,000. And obviously it includes our vision of knowing Christ and making Christ known.
Pardon me. There are a variety of narrative questions that we ask and have them respond to us. What is the congregation's vision for the ministry? And you can read all these. I'm not going to read these for you, but these are questions that help us better understand the candidates that submit their requests to us, so we get a better feel for them. We ask about the description of characteristics, specific tasks, and then we also provide this. We provide these questions, and then they give a great answer for us, and then links to our website. Oh, this is me too. Where do we get our candidates? Lene talked about getting them from the presbytery. That's sort of a match. These are folks that are looking for a new calling, and we submit our MIF, and those things are sort of matched up, I think electronically, a lot of it. And then we are notified that here's a possible candidate, and then we get from there. We also have reached out to other pastors, and Don has been involved in that. Do you know anybody? Is there anyone that you have worked with? Is there anyone that you know of that may be looking for a new calling? We've got a variety of candidates from there. Don has been involved in that. Don is not intricately involved in the process, but he is obviously one of the pastors that may have someone that we want to look at. He's given us several leads as well. And we follow up on every one of these. We never sort of discount any of them, whether they come from the CLC, or whether they come from the pastor or a member of the church. We follow up on every one of them by looking at sermons and do some online checking and so forth.
Sure, and thank you, Steve. When a candidate is matched with Westminster's MIF, Ministry Information Form, or is self-referring, they provide us with a PIF. You ready for this one? So you got the MIF, Ministry Information Form. The PIF is the Personal Information Form. So what is a PIF? The PIF includes information about the candidate's education, their prior calls, their additional training, certification, as well as answers to 4 narrative questions. This just basically gives you the idea that we can know a lot about a candidate before we even speak to them. Their 4 narrative questions happen to be: describe a moment in your ministry that you recognize as one of success and fulfillment. Describe a ministry setting to which you believe God is calling you. What areas of growth have you identified in yourself? Describe a time when you have led change. The candidate can also provide us with links to sermons or other writings, which may include blogs. They include a statement of faith, and they will also provide us with references.
And they're not short. They're fairly inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. Steve.
Harvey. Updates. We talked earlier about our website. We do periodic video and written updates on there. It's time for another video. Probably, how many of you have looked at our website? So a few of you have.
And now you know we have it.
And now you know we have it. So I encourage the rest of you to do that. You'll see the smiling face of Lene on a variety of those. You'll see me and a couple of other members and some of our video updates. We need to do another one because we have some updates for you. But keep close to that PNC update because you'll get a lot of information on there. You can email us. There's the email address, pnc@westminster.org. If you have questions or you have concerns or you want to share a thought, we'd love to hear from you. Craig has shared some of his thoughts already with us. So please reach out to us because we want to know how you feel and what you think about all of this. Or stop us in the hallways. We have name tags. Even I have a name tag. I remembered my face mask, but forgot my name. So but please stop us. We want to hear what you have to say.
Great. And ultimately, as elected by the congregation, means that we report to you all. So I will be providing an update to session, but we want to make sure that we keep the lines of communication open with the members of the congregation because that is who we are representing here. But it can kind of feel a little time of uncertainty, can be anxiety producing. And I think one of the questions I get from people is, what can we do? What can we do as a member of the congregation? Please pray for us. We welcome your prayers as we speak to candidates and as we seek to discern who is the best fit to lead Westminster. We ask that you pray for our next head of staff. May God prepare their hearts and order their lives such that they are ready to receive our call. And pray for our current staff, especially Don, as he celebrates many lasts in his final year of serving Westminster. The last thing I would say, and I thought this was a great point, is continue to participate in the life of the congregation. The candidates are learning about us just as we are learning about them. It was really interesting. We have had 4 first interviews. I expect actually we may be finishing up a couple in January. But the candidates are doing their research. Just as we are doing our research on them, they are doing their research on us, which means we're watching their services. They are watching ours. They're seeing us in the pews, greeting each other with the peace of Christ. They're watching the choir, and wow, wonderful that they have the opportunity to see our Christmas concert live streamed. We had some candidates that had a chance to watch that this past weekend. So they want to see that we are continuing as a congregation to be active and involved. So just such that we are they can ascertain if we're the right fit for their next call. And we would like to open it up for questions. Sure, Gary.
Are you considering any of the 3 existing pastors that we have?
In the fall of 2018, as part of personnel, I chaired a committee called the Succession Planning Team, and we looked at the different options we had on how to transition from the current head of staff to the new head of staff. The most common one used in PCUSA is the use of an interim pastor. With enough lead time, which Don was willing to give us, we did not feel that was necessary. And I'm getting to the answer to your question. I'm just going the roundabout way. We did not feel that was necessary to use an interim since we had a longer lead time. The church is in a great position. We had just engaged in our vision plan back in the fall of 2018, so had a well-established plan. Feel that we could, the use of an interim might slow that process, slow the progression of the church, and that we could maybe more seamlessly transition from our outgoing head of staff to the new one, such as passing the baton in a 4x100 relay and keep the momentum of the church going forward. One of the other options we did look at, and it didn't used to be allowed in PCUSA churches, is elevating one of your associate pastors. That is an option that the committee did look at, and we decided that was not something that would be of the best fit for Westminster at this time. Yes.
I think he asked the same question I was going to ask.
Sure.
Our present pastors, could they be part of this search, or is that what you were just explaining?
Well, that's a different question than what Gary was asking. Gary was asking if we are considering the associate pastors and elevating them to
Yes.
this position, and that answer was no. Your question was, are they participating in the search? They are not participants, nor is Don a participant in the search. When the finalist comes to the church, we will possibly even just for their second interview. So prior to us calling them to the church, we will arrange a meet and greet, but it is not an interview.
Probably one of the things I might add to what Lene's an answer to your question, Gary. The three associate pastors are serving a very important role. We look at them as we look at these other candidates in terms of, are they better than the candidates we're looking at? I was trying to think of a better way to say that, but yeah. So they're sort of a bar so they're serving a role, even though they may not know it, but they're serving a role on our new episode.
And they also have to be a right fit with our current staff.
Right.
I'm sorry, Jean?
I think you answered it when you talked to Carrie. Don is not involved in the interview process.
Correct.
And my question is, why not?
And again, that is the way the PCUSA is structured, their search process. That the pastor is called by the congregation, not by the head of staff. Don is involved in, and I actually participated in the APNC that called Ann Hatfield, and also was on with along with Dan Williams.
Right there.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Dan. Along with Dan, as well as we called Jenny Clark as our temporary supply pastor for adult spiritual growth. In both of those committees, as in calling an associate pastor, Don did have input and did interview the candidates. Go ahead.
Are our current pastors able, though, to recommend candidates to be considered?
They are. Everybody is welcome to provide us with referrals. Yes, and we actually have had. To be honest, I don't know that we've had any of the associate pastors provide us with referrals, but other staff members have, and we've certainly had members of the congregation that have reached out to us with names. Sure. Go ahead.
Without violating any age discrimination legislation, is there a sweet spot for the age of the candidate so they can serve 10, 20 years here? And what is that sweet spot, do you think?
That's a great question. I mean, Don has certainly made it clear that he didn't want to be behind the pulpit when he was 70. So that's why he's electing to retire where he is. And we were fortunate to have him. It will have been about 22 years when he finishes his time here at Westminster. And he's only our seventh head of staff, I believe we've had since our founding, and it'll be 130 years next year. You are correct in that we are not age discriminating. We did put in our MIF, our ministry information form, that we're looking for 5 to 10 years of experience as a head of staff, which probably would put somewhere in their, in their mid 30s at a minimum. We need to make sure it's a large congregation. We have a, over $2 million budget. We need to have somebody who has the experience to be able to come in and be at the helm. But do we have I think we're looking to God for guidance on that one. Is there somebody that's too old? No.
It's not hard and fast.
No. Do we have any questions? Dave Goodale. Sure, Dave.
Hi, Lene. Thank you. My question is that before Don announced his retirement, our two musical directors indicated they were wanting to retire. So do you have any information on, are they leaving the leads? Is it a who's going to make it first to the door type of thing? Or can you shed any light on that?
That is probably more of a question for Don and for personnel than for me at this time.
I would guess that the ministers that you're interviewing, that might be a critical aspect for them. I'm not sure, but
It is
you know, are they coming to a church? I don't know. I have some questions about who's going to retire first and things like that.
Right. I think the pandemic threw us for a little bit of a loop on that one. Obviously, Bob and Glenn had been intending to retire in 2020. So that has now been delayed by a couple of years. So I think there was always the intent to have the retirements staggered. And that
Right.
is not going to be the case. But there is no doubt, if you look at, and again, I've been a member of the church for almost 20 years, that we have turnover, natural attrition. Tony Sundermeyer, Shelley Latham, Aaron, they all served here at the church as associate pastors, have moved on as head of staff, our solo pastors elsewhere. Sue Spots, who retired at the end of last year. We're now bringing in a new director of children's and family ministries at the start of 2022. So you're absolutely right. The director of music and the organist play a large role in leading worship. But I have every faith that personnel and session as they and Don will be, involved as we decide how to transition to a new director of music. Tim.
On the point
Thank
that
you.
Kate was raising related to it, in discussions with potential candidates for lead pastor, are we disclosing the likelihood of the retirement of the two critical non-pastoral roles in our worship service, being the director of music and the organist? I don't know if it would influence a potential candidate's decision, but are we disclosing that may happen? Because if it did happen upon day 2 months into their job and these two resign or retire, they say, wait a minute, what are you doing to me?
Right, and I believe, again, with the interviews that we had, that was not, we didn't know that Bob and Glenn's retirement was imminent. They had not announced it. So it had not been raised in our first interviews, but it's certainly something that we will disclose to the candidates once we have some more clarity.
I think we need.
I agree.
Yeah, and we've
Whether
talked
it's
about
1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, they need to know that that's going to happen. We
Right.
just don't know the date upon which it will happen.
Right.
As Lene said, that was fairly new stuff, and we actually talked about it at our last meeting, how we're going to present that to candidates and to second interview candidates. So absolutely, it's a good question from Dave, and it will be part of our role. Because you're right, we don't want the final candidate to come in and suddenly there's no music director. Because but we've made a point that music is a very, very important part of our church ministry. So we can't say that and then not pay some attention to it. So you're exactly right.
Yes, Dan.
Now that you've started interviewing candidates, do we know if our $130,000 effective salary, do we know that that's competitive and is there quite a bit of flexibility in that if we need it to get the right person?
I'll answer the question two ways. First of all, Donegal actually discouraged us from putting 130. They actually wanted a lower number, and we said no. We think 130 is a comfortable number. If you attend the congregational meeting last January, we'll have another one coming up in this January. Don's effective salary right now, I believe, is $156,700. So the 130 is lower. But Don has also been our pastor for over 20 years. So is the room? I can't give you the upper number. I mean, trustees has an upper number, what we have room to negotiate for, but we believe the 130 should be competitive. That said, if you go on to the Church Leadership Connection, the PCUSA dating app, you can pull up what other churches of our size, again, the category greater than 1,500 members, other churches our size are willing to offer, what's their minimum effective salaries are for a head of staff. Currently, there are only two other churches in the United States of that size that are looking for a head of staff: Trinity Presbyterian in Atlanta and First Presbyterian Spartanburg. Both of their minimum effective salaries actually are higher than ours. Even Spartanburg, South Carolina. I think the cost of living is probably a little higher here in Westchester, but apparently that's not atypical. Southern churches are very well endowed.
The other thing, the PIFs, that the candidates will indicate what their required salary levels are. And that gives us a sense and of where we are with this. But our rationale was, we didn't want to go any lower because that limits your pool. We wanted to go a little bit higher because that it also limits your pool, but limits people who have a little bit more experience and might be better suited for our church.
Yeah, Nominating, I thought it was a little bit on the low side. That's the only reason I raised the question.
The trustees have set a limit at 42,000.
So,
I'm kidding.
the two churches that you mentioned, what are their minimums?
I believe Trinity was 140 or 145. First President Spartanburg, I believe, is 165.
They pay better.
Which
than
is
salary.
obviously more than what Don is, effective salary, which, yeah. Mhm. Go ahead in the back.
Yes. Who's responsible for moving expenses?
We will be responsible for moving expenses. Trustees has provided us with a budget, both for the P&C costs, since likely we will be either traveling to see these candidates in their churches. We certainly will be flying or driving, putting the candidates up in hotels when they come to visit us. So we have a budget, and there also is a relocation budget as well. Yes.
Now, the fringe benefits added to the salary are pretty substantial, aren't they?
Yes.
So do all the other offer the same type of fringe benefits?
Yes, those benefits are similar. Exactly. Go ahead, Chuck.
Sure. You said you meet once a week for a year?
Yep.
I'd like to ask you, how long do your meetings usually last?
That's a great question. So Jim Scanlon, who many of you know, is a retired superintendent for a Westchester area school district. When we first, and he's our co-chair along with me, when we first started meeting, he was like, yeah, so in and out, 90 minutes at the most. We've got to be in and out. Well, we've gone over 90 minutes. What's interesting is Jerry McShane, as the church administrator, on Thursday night, and he purposely will said, we'll have some of the air conditioning. He says it turn off at 9 o'clock. There's not a lot at 7. There's been a couple of times when we hear with the air going off, and we said, oh, gotta get out of here.
I want to thank you all for the time that you have spent and will be spending.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's been a blessing too. Well, first of all, it's been a blessing to serve on the committee with this crew, because Steve is one that I didn't even know, not by name and not by face, which really is remarkable thinking about, again, the size of the church, but the fact that I've been a member for almost 20 years and Steve has been here for several as well. There are other people on the committee also that I had not, that I did not know. So it's been a joy to get to know them. There's also a lot of work that's done during the week, and I think you already got that indication. When I talk about listening to sermons, we get the opportunity to listen to these sermons. We've looked at over 50 candidates. Everybody's live streaming. So we're not just listening to a couple of sermons that the candidate sends us, which was the case when we looked at, let's say, Ann Hatfield, or I'm sure with the P&C that brought Don on over 20 years ago. He sent them a couple of audio files of maybe a couple of his best sermons. We are able to click on Facebook Live or YouTube and pull up sermons for every Sunday of the past year and a half, almost 2 years. Westminster's been live streaming since 2017. We were ahead of the game, thankfully, but there are other churches that have been live streaming pre-pandemic, but certainly all of them.
I'm glad you aren't doing that with me.
Right, well, every single,
my background.
and it's interesting too, because not only are we able to listen to the sermon, which is what candidates typically use to submit, but we're actually able to watch the whole service. Don is in charge of the entire service as the head of staff, so he's helping design the whole structure of the service, including the music. Obviously has an active role in including the music as well. We're able to watch communions. I've watched baptisms and communions. I've actually watched a memorial service. That was not my intent. I just happened to click on it when I saw it was live stream. Started watching a memorial service that the candidate was officiating. I've watched a couple of congregational meetings, which was fascinating, but they were now live streamed in this era. And of course, as moderator, the head of staff would be leading congregational meetings.
What we do in our meetings, Chuck, is when we have, let's say, 20 people to take a look at, we'll split that up so each of us like have 1 or 2, or we'll split them up on teams, and 3 or 4 of us will take 3 or 4 Then we'll come back and we'll share what we think. And we go around the room and we share. And so we make a joint decision, who goes forward, who gets in on hold, or how we, so it's always a joint decision. And the team is working really well together. I think there's a big advantage to spending this much time together because we've gelled as a team. And I think that's gonna make a very difficult decision a little bit easier because we all agree.
And one thing I will add to that, and thank you, Steve, is when Session and personnel were talking about how many people should make up a nominating committee, there's no hard and fast rule. But typically, and Don had kind of laughed, typically churches choose odd numbers. We're an 11-person committee. And the thought is that if you need a tiebreaker, 6 to 5. We decided as a committee, and it's not, we decided on our own. You have a choice. It can be majority, it can be super majority, it can be unanimous. We decided that we want the decision to be unanimous when we decide who to call.
You had about 50 candidates, and Steve, you just said some you set aside. What is the criteria for setting them aside other than maybe they've led a small church? I mean, is there spiritual differences or techniques from the pulpit, or what causes people to be put aside rather than
all of those things? Because when we vet them, we look at a lot of things: the musical program, how their preaching style, and I think of a better way to say age, but you can tell if somebody's been around for a while, or I mean, I'm 32, but I look a little older. But we all sort of all of those kinds of things. We will sometimes we'll come back after looking at and someone will say, well, this person just didn't wow me. The message just there was no message, or they read their sermons, or and then 2 or 3 other people say that, and then Jim will say, anybody like this person?
That's right to the chase.
So we spend a lot of time on each one, but it's all of those things. It's not just one thing. Is there a tendency to look for a clone of Don Lincoln, or is that something you? Because I mean, I've learned a lot about speaking and that sort of thing listening to him, but I would think there's a tendency to, okay, let's get Don Jr. Maybe you're going in a different direction. It's kind of hard not to if we've been around Don for a while, but I can speak for me. I'm trying to put Don aside and look at someone that will lead this church into the future years. And the philanthropic experience, ministry, preaching style, reaching out to congregation, all of those kinds of things that we've set up early on. So it's hard not to, but we've made a conscious effort. I think we've all made a conscious effort to do that.
I just want to make sure, Bob Bell, Reverend Bell.
Yes, I have a comment about the church and not candidates. Lene, you mentioned that Westminster has a history of long pastorates. And on the screens here, you have representatives of 2 of those, one actually in person and me kind of proxy for my dad. And my dad said that says more about the congregation than the pastors, that the congregation can surround a pastor for many years, as Bob Young, 32 or something like that, and then embrace the new one. That doesn't mean you don't like the old one anymore, but able to embrace a new one for a long time. Westminster has been somewhat unique in that ability to enjoy a pastor for a long time and then move on to the next one. In some churches, following a long pastorate, somebody comes in for a few years almost as an unintentional interim and then moves on. Westminster has not been that, and I think there's nothing to say that it won't be in the next generation.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that.
Any other questions for us?
Yes.
Is there a committee analogous to yours meeting even as we speak to fill the potential vacancies in music? And if so, do you folks coordinate with them anticipating that all 3 vacancies may be filled within a very short period of time?
Well, I think that was a question that Dave was asking. So Jeff Smith was Jeff is chair of our personnel committee. He's on well, I can see him, I can't see him, but I can see his name on there. That is something that will be addressed by personnel within the next few weeks. So I don't have an answer for you.
Just simple question. Did I understand you correctly that you're down to 4 candidates?
No. I'm sorry if I misled you. So we have looked at over 50. We have had first interviews so far with 4.
Oh, okay.
Yes, correct. We expect that we will probably have a couple of more first interviews. We're taking this Thursday off. And it is a very busy time, not just for us, everyday people, but extremely busy time for pastors. So we are giving them a grace period during Advent in getting back to us. So we have paused our first interview schedule until after the first of the year. Expect we will have another 2 to 3 first interviews after the first of the year. We are in the process of starting our reference checks on those candidates who we have already interviewed.
We're still getting candidate names.
Yeah. You still get
Yes.
Just got one
Yes.
this week.
Mhm. Correct.
Wow.
Dave.
Hi, me again. I'm probably the most biased person here, but when I picture a minister, it's a likeness. I always think of a man. Are you getting any women candidates
We
at all?
We are getting female candidates as well. Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, Dave, 2 of those will probably get a second interviews.
Oh, that's great. It's just a bias we have from, at least I do, from my childhood.
That's great. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate your input.
Okay.
2 women. Well, we have several final, but the 4 that I think 2 of those at least are women that will go to a second interview. Can I tell them that? Probably not.
Well, I think you've already said it, so.
It's too late to ask that
Where's that
question.
mask? I'm putting that mask back on.
This is why she leads to this paper. Don't let me alone.
Any other questions for us? Well, thank you very much. Again, I refer you to our webpage. It's under Westminster's website under the About tab. If you go down, it has PNC. That again gives links to all the bios of all the committee members, as well as provides a link to our MIF. If you want to see a copy of our ministry information form for Westminster, you can link on the MIF there. It also links to our email address, pnc@westminsterpc.org. If you have some additional questions or have referrals for us, you can also get video updates. Our video updates will be posted there as well. Thank you.